Welcome to the Agile Coffee Podcast, Espresso Shots. My name is Vic Bonacci, and this is episode 4. What I'm doing is, instead of sitting and hosting a full-on episode of the Agile Coffee Podcast, which could take 45 minutes or longer, instead I'm cutting out some of my favorite tastes from the past 6 years or so to give you a sense of what are some great conversations that I had in the past. Episode 4, so we're going to spin the wheel to get a topic, and then I'm going to give you my take on it, and then we'll listen to the group also share what they had to say back then. Are you ready? Let's spin the wheel. Remember, if it lands on an arrow, we keep moving to the right. All right, number 4 says episode 38. So we're going to go back in time to episode 38 and answer the importance of culture and behaviors in Agile. This is something that Colleen shared with the group way back then. Let's see, 38. This would have been in September 2015. It was right after the Agile Open in 2015 where we had Colleen. Who else? Aaron Griffith, Brock was there, myself, and we talked about what is the importance of having culture and behaviors in Agile. When I think of this one, we're going to talk about some sessions that we may have gone to back in this Agile Open that we had here, and a lot of people were talking about nonviolent communication as having a lot of different topics that year. The way that teams relate to each other. I think that in current years, more recent years, I remember more topics being around how can management or leadership be as involved in making a change in the culture as well. Because if you think about it, Scrum and Agile both have a number of values, and Agile in particular has the principles from the manifesto on Agile software development. But what do these values and principles mean? I like to think of them as observations. Someone was observing high-performing teams, whether they were using Scrum or some other process or framework in this Agile universe. And from these high-performing teams, the teams that were functioning as self-organizing, self-managing groups, getting things done, delivering value to the organization, what were the values that came from there? What rose out of having these observations? What did we see? Or sometimes I might say, what did we not see? What values were absent from these teams? Oftentimes when I'm working with new teams and having them start to generate the values that they hold dear, I ask them to go back in time and think of the best team, the most fun team that they were on. And what kinds of values were celebrated on that team? Or conversely, think of a time where you didn't like that team, or you didn't like that workplace. What were some of the values that you noticed were missing? So you could start from either of those places when we talk about values on an Agile team. Well, let's go back then to September of 2015, episode 38, and hear what the group had to say. Remember, if you want to hear the full episode, you can go to agilecoffee.com/episode 38 and hear the whole thing. I just gave you my take. Let's listen to them, and then please comment below. Colleen, I believe this is yours. It says the importance of culture and behavior in Agile.
Yeah, I guess I brought up this topic because I was so surprised and delighted about how many talks and people attended that wanted to know about, for instance, nonviolent communication, right? I mean, the fact that there was a session on that, I thought, this is perfect,
and just 5 sessions on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, so many of the stressors from new process or new ways of doing things come from the inability to articulate our needs, right? And so I just felt like having others show us different ways to have our teams be more open about dialogue was great. And that was why I brought the card up. I don't know if you guys had anything to add to that.
I was at 3 maybe 3.5 of the NVC sessions, and it's something that we had at the last open space I was at, which was the coach camp in April. I wasn't able to go, and I'm volunteering at this event, so I was hanging signs or something, and I overheard the topic, the first session that they pitched yesterday, and I thought, wow, they're doing some really good exercises, and I'm curious, I want to go. And so I went to the second and the third sessions yesterday that they put on, and then today I went back to some of the ones that they'd repeated. But yeah, fantastic lessons, because like you just said, they're addressing very non-technical behavior related issues that really we, as whether we're developers, quality, leadership, scrum masters, product people, it doesn't matter. We're all people. And so it's software, but it's a people business. And so these touchy-feely, kind of fuzzy sessions are sometimes the biggest surprises and the best value that you can get. Having said that, I've never gone to a coding dojo or a coding kata session, and that's something that I should be attending as well, just to kind of round out the experience.
Well, either way, it all kind of boils down to us all being human, right? And so we need to be able to communicate with each other. The one I was involved in, the nonviolent communication, was with regard to kind of changing the way we do retros, or to understanding how maybe something negative happens. How do we deal with that? And it was kind of all based around 3 separate questions that we can kind of ask. And that it was, what do I need? What do I need more of? In my development cycle, in my life, as a person, are there base human needs that I'm missing? Are there other things that we need to address? And then as figuring out what that would look like. What does that look like for us if we were to receive those things in? And then finally, what do we do about it? What can we as a group do to ensure those differences? And so through all that, maybe there is some negativity that had happened within a given sprint, within a development cycle, and you can say, what would that be like if that was different? And so rather than assigning blame, it's constructive and it's very positive. I thought that was incredibly valuable.
There was one thing I wanted to add on the culture. So I facilitated a session this morning on creating an Agile manifesto for leaderships and executives, because yesterday in every single session I attended, whether you were talking dojo or technical topics about the retrospectives and the Agile process, clearly there's kind of almost what I would say is a rift of understanding between executives and teams. And I said, you know what, let's just talk this through. And a lot of people attended that session, and I found it valuable because it speaks to culture, right? I mean, you might look at traditional management culture to be something that's rather hierarchical, where a lot of decisions come from the top down, and we're talking about empowerment culture from the bottoms up. And now we have to meet because we all have to get this work done. And what came out of the session that I found was very valuable was we also need to be sensitive to the needs of executives. It's not just an evil Darth Vader evil force, but these people have tremendous responsibilities in terms of keeping on budget, and they have politics too. They have the same, they're human beings, just like you were saying. They have the same challenges we do. And so if we can come together and work together, it'd be better. So that was a really good session. I felt it was rather cathartic.
Yeah. And you also said this was your first Agile Open space. And so how did that feel, being able to pitch that session and then have people come? How did that make you feel?
I was totally fine with it because I enjoy engagements with people. But it was wonderful. I would encourage, and I hope in the future that some of my team can come and just experience it.
My first couple of Agile Opens were probably more the first one. It was, for me, it was just being around people that had been in miserable experiences and just that shared bad experience, the shared horror stories. And then from there, it kind of grew to okay, well, how do we make it better? And then now to sharing what's better for me and for the team that I work on, and about sharing the things that are working and not so much focusing on the negativity. I think at the beginning you kind of got to get it all out there, and you can find people here for that. But then when you're ready to go for better, when you're ready to share, there's people here for that too.
Yeah, absolutely.